Hi, and welcome back to the podcast. I'm Jeff Walter, your host. Today I have two guests, Mary Carter and Julie Hiatt from Learning Designs. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Mary is the founder and president of LDI. Her career is proof that you can and should always keep your options open. The plan was to teach school, but there were no jobs available when she completed her master's in education. So that led to employment with the Boys and Girls Clubs of Michigan, GM's Department of Education and Training, and finally her own company, Learning Designs. And then she went back to school for adult learning and instructional technology. And although some people know her for her red pen, she is primarily a big picture thinker that loves to tackle systems problems. And outside of work, she enjoys reading and spending time with family and friends. And Mary's favorite saying, never try to teach a pig to sing. It wastes your time and it annoys the pig. Very interesting saying, Mary. Especially given the learning nature of your career.
That's right.
So pigs are not trainable from a singing perspective. And Julie is a business manager. I was a manager of business development over at Learning Designs. She's been with LDI for almost 30 years, a long time. Over the years, she's developed so many different skills, including managing large-scale training programs for clients in the automotive industry, IT, energy, and workforce development. She uses her training and development experience to provide clients with solutions that produce results, from upfront consulting to problem-solving project implementation. Her favorite quote is from Henry Ford. Whether you think you can or you think you can't, you are right. I love that one. Julie loves the outdoors, is a long distance runner. I'm about to do my first half Ironman this weekend.
Woo.
So
all right.
I'm with you on that. She also enjoys biking, kayaking, paddleboarding, and snowshoeing. She has a master's degree in business administration from Wayne State University. Welcome, Mary and Julie. It's great to have you here.
Thank you.
So usually I like to get a little bit more background, folks, and how you ended up. So Mary, we'll start with you. So what prompted you to start Learning Designs? Seems like you had a nice thing going there, and with GM. And how did you end up with what made you give all that up and start a company from scratch? As I'm aware, that takes a lot of nerve. So how'd you end up doing that? A lot of guts.
Well, I took a look at what was going on around me, and I was working in what was then the education and training department. And it seemed to me that kind of the outside people had more influence than the inside people in terms of making change, that somehow people are often more impressed with a quote outside point of view than they are internal. And I thought I probably could make a bigger impact on the outside. The other thing I think that intrigued me was, by starting my own business, there were more opportunities to do a greater variety of things. And I didn't want to be kind of pigeonholed into a particular department. And I remember one of the managers who was trying very hard to recruit me. And he said, every time we get somebody really talented, somebody steals them away into a different department. And I know he meant that as a compliment, but to me, it was kind of a message that if we hire you, we really want you to stay here with us. And
right.
I was thinking, in a corporation the size of GM, I probably would have wanted to move into different areas than to stay in education and training for an entire career. So that was kind of the madness behind my thinking.
Hey, Mary, I think you might have ended up in education and training for your entire career.
Right.
Usually starting a learning company is not a good way of diversifying outside of that. So what was the idea behind, the idea behind learning designs was you can make a bigger impact. What's been some of the lessons learned or the most exciting things that's happened? Because you guys have been around for a long time. You've had tremendous impact on many, many, many clients. And so I guess what's the biggest surprise to you looking back on the tenure? if you think about when you started, there was a certain impact you want to have and a certain type of service you were going to offer. But what surprised you the most over these years?
Well, I think what surprises me is it's how much things change, but on the other hand, it's how much things don't change. I've kind of been around long enough that you kind of see things come and go. You see, a new theory or a new technique. And then about 10 years later, you recognize you're seeing the same thing again
Hmm.
with a different name or a different label or a slightly different twist. But although so much changes in terms of the way we create training materials, the way we may deliver training, some of the content or some of the messaging really does not change that much over time. And I think some of the needs are still the same. I mean, if you said what's the biggest training need in most companies, it probably has something to do with communication. It's an age old problem. Everybody has trouble with it, and nobody has come up with the end all solution, I don't
But
think.
what have you found is some of the best ways to address the communication skills? Because I assume you're talking about communication skills amongst the staff and
Right.
vendors. And so what's worked well to try and
I think
combat that challenge?
I think what works well today maybe is some kind of a blended solution. Think I think it's fine to I'm a big proponent of e-learning for some things, and I believe it does not work for other things.
Hmm.
And I think it's fine to teach theory online, but if you want to practice some of these skills, you probably have to be face to face and practice. Some of
Right.
that is changing a little bit with artificial intelligence, and
Right.
we're beginning to get the ability now to interact with avatars. But in the past, to just read about communication skills or sit and listen to information about communication skills is probably not going to impact my actual communication skills.
Right.
So I think it goes back to, the old premise about good instructional design. You have to figure out what it is you're trying to teach and then what's the appropriate methodology for teaching it.
So, Julie, you've been with Learning Designs for a while now. I think he's coming up on almost 30 years. So,
Yeah.
what brought you over to Learning Designs those many years ago, and how did you arrive at where you're at today?
Well, it's kind of funny because I was a paralegal before joining learning design. So it really had nothing to do with learning and development. And I thought, kind of like what Mary said, I would just give it a try. Kind of started at the front desk doing administrative type work and really didn't think I would stay very long, to be honest. I thought, this is something totally different. I don't know if I'll like it, but what I have liked and still continue to like is the variety of people and projects that I've been able to work on and just wearing so many hats. And in a lot of corporations, again, you don't get to do that. You don't get to go from proposal writing to marketing to project management to consulting around a solution for a client. So, working in all these different industries and with like the top down to plant floor workers is fun and it brings variety and excitement and it's never the same. So, I think that is really what's kept me here so long and just being able to continuously learn myself.
Yeah, I was recently talking to somebody, and it was interesting because we were talking about smaller firms versus larger firms,
Hmm.
and they said the exact same thing you just said, which is one of the underappreciated benefits of being in a smaller firm, because a smaller firm has to do all the things that a larger firm has to do: sales, marketing, operations, HR, legal, finance. Like all the functions still exist. There's just a
Mhm.
lot fewer people, and so there's a huge opportunity to wear those multiple hats and gain that experience and figure out what it is you love. Whereas in a larger firm, you have departments for every one of those,
Right.
Yeah.
and you've got sometimes thousands of people in each department, and your ability to sit there and go, hey, I want to dip my toe in client
Mhm.
management, or I want to dip my toe in instructional design. Like you just don't have those opportunities. So It's so then how'd you end up on manager of business development? You start off at the front. Was that where the passion ended up taking you, or how did you end up there?
That's a good question. I ended up continuing my education and got my master's degree while working for Learning Designs. And one of my kind of concentrations was marketing. So that's really what led me to business development and really that kind of consultative approach with clients has always
Hmm.
been interesting to me, and reading proposals and trying to come up with the best solution and that strategy to me is fun, instead of, like you said, I this is all that I do, and to get a decision made I don't have to go to 20 people and wait for 20 people to get
Right.
an answer. It's kind of like, here's an idea, what do you think, and being able to run with it pretty quickly has been very appealing to me.
Yeah. Yeah. It was funny. I was just Monday night, just a couple of nights ago, after hours, just sitting in my office with one of my colleagues, and we realized that you know, he was there at the beginning, and it's been over 20 years
Mm.
together, and it was kind of like, man, that went fast.
Yeah.
And all and
Mhm.
just we're kind of reflecting on everything that happened over the last 20 some odd years, and it was really cool. To have that. I think that's something a lot of folks don't have today. The kind of the old idea of you go to work for this company, work there for your career
Mhm.
doesn't happen. And I think that's a good thing to get the talent where it can be best applied. But then, if you're lucky enough to end up in a situation where, the environment is such that you can achieve your career goals, and you can stay there for a couple decades, it's really cool. It's re- and you can accomplish really great things. So so let's talk about learning designs a little. What are you guys into now? When clients look for you and want to do business with you, and you're responding to some of those RFPs, what is it they're trying to achieve? What are they hoping you can help them do? What kind of impact, Mary, you talked about having greater impact. What kind of impact are they looking for from you all?
Well, I would say it all depends. Depends on the project. If it's a particular skill or knowledge base, I mean, it may be, say, let's use a very simple example. We're going to have a new expense reporting system or a new piece of equipment everybody has to learn to use. They may want training developed to teach people how to use it. I mean, it may be something as simple as that, some kind of a, performance. It may be a bigger goal. And for example, this apprenticeship would be an example of that. A public workforce board that wanted to create a DOL, Department of Labor,
Right.
certified apprenticeship for their professional staff and wanted to build a curriculum to support that based on the competencies that people would need. And they wanted it housed in the learning management system, which is where you come into the picture. So sometimes
We've got one of those.
it's a much bigger, well, and that's
Yeah.
been the advantage of the relationship, is that it allows us to, go to a customer with a total solution, like Julie's talking
Mhm.
about. Here's your solution. You don't have a learning management system, you have no way to track. Well, here we can, what about this? So I think it's, building those partnerships that allow you to provide better solutions, total solutions to the customer,
Yeah.
rather than forcing them to go out and look for all the pieces.
If we circle back to the apprenticeship programs, that's interesting. So that's at the state level is kind of sponsoring these different types of states. And when I hear apprenticeship, my brain immediately goes to skilled trades.
Mhm.
Millwright, plumber, electrician. Are we talking about apprenticeships in that vein, or
We are, but what people don't realize is there are many other apprenticeable trades. For example, hairdressers,
uh-huh.
cosmetologists, funeral directors. There are a lot of apprenticeable trades rather than just the traditional skilled trades we think about, especially in the Detroit area, the electricians and pipe fitters and millwrights. And there has been a big push in the last, I would say, 10 years to use an apprentice approach to professional careers that have not typically, been obtained through an apprenticeship. So this is a good
Uh-huh.
example. Public workforce organizations in the state of Michigan, it's called Michigan Works. And
Okay.
there would be these career centers in various locations throughout the state. The people who staff those centers have varied levels of education. They may be college graduates, they may not,
Uh-huh.
but they pretty much require a certain set of skills based on the tasks that they have to do. For example, they need communication skills, they need to know something about career development, they need to know about interviewing. So there would be a list of these skills, and the idea would be to develop a program around those skills or those competencies and frame it like an apprenticeship so that they go to work and they're earning an income, but
Right.
they're also taking classes online
Uh-huh.
and they're getting the on the job experience. So it's a combination, just like an electrician. They're
Right.
taking classes in school, but they also have to work. It's like 2,000 hours a year.
Uh-huh.
And we have a task list of things they have to be able to do, specific tasks related to every one of those competencies. So if it's communication, maybe they have to be able to write memos correctly, or they have to be able to make a presentation, or they have to be able, whatever it is, those specific skills. And it's all tied together. And they go through it over a period of 2 years.
Okay.
They get, in this case, they get a bonus. Their income, increases every 6 months, just like the apprentices in the auto industry.
Uh-huh.
And so it's very similar, but it's tied to a quote professional career rather than a hands-on skill like an electrician or a plumber.
That's interesting. So, because typically, I mean, on some of the licensed things, like say, cosmetology or that, you have to put in a certain number of hours
Hmm.
to get your license.
Right.
And I remember my late wife, she was a psychologist and, similar type of thing, but it wasn't it wasn't a formal apprenticeship program where you could, you had to basically just do an unpaid internship for however many
Sure.
hours, right?
Right. Right.
And so who's who's employing the people that are the apprentices? You see it in the automotive sector with the OEMs, but
Yeah.
is it the state employing them? Or are they subsidizing?
No, it's the employment agency or personnel company, whoever is staffing those workforce centers.
Okay.
And that varies, from, there are contractors who do that. There are sometimes it's county employees.
Okay.
Structure differs from board to board and state to state, but the certifying agency is the Department of Labor.
Okay.
So
Now, go ahead. I'm sorry.
they have to apply to DOL and get their apprenticeship program approved. And then when people finish, they get a journeyman card, um, just like an electrician.
So now is it primarily the public sector that's employing them or the private sector?
It's primarily public.
But it's open to both.
It could be, sure.
Oh,
Could
okay.
be transferable,
Yeah.
certainly.
That's interesting because last year I gave a couple of presentations on the global skill gap. And
Mhm.
you were talking about skills earlier with AI, and it's always, having been in learning development for over 20 years now, that we're really good as an industry in knowledge acquisition, right? How to convey knowledge from me to a student, or
Mhm.
from, how to get knowledge into a learner's head, right? All the techniques that you talked about, and it's changed over the years as technology's changed, but we do a pretty good job at that. But the challenge I've always found was going to the next step of actually skill development, because that's really traditionally been very human intensive. And the way I always think of it is knowledge acquisition is, you can now pass your road test for your driver's license. skill development is being able to actually pass the road test, right? Being able to actually parallel park and
Right.
pull onto a highway, which usually requires a lot of intense coaching,
It's
practicing
two
coaching.
different things.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, exactly. So and these skilled trades have kind of addressed that many moons ago with their apprenticeship programs and
Yep.
journeyman. But the not the outside of that traditional skilled trades, not really. You get a little bit on the internship side, you get a little bit on the licensing side. But one thing that always bugged me about that was, especially on the licensure side, if you got to put in like 2,000 free hours
Mm-hmm.
to get like a 4th of July weekend, I was up north with some friends, and their kids both kids are in their 30s, right? But showing my age, but they both teach in Chicago public schools,
Mm-hmm.
and they both had to put in 2,000 hours of internship
Being
or
teaching.
externship
Mhm.
to become a teacher, and that's a year of free labor.
Yep.
And you got to be there's a lot of people that can't afford that, right? There's a lot of people that have to actually pay the bills and can't do that. So it's neat to see it's neat to see these initiatives to address the global skill gap, in that we have all these we have all this need for skilled labor,
Mm-hmm.
but at the same time doing it in a way that a person can actually pay rent
Yeah.
while they're developing the skill and then
Yep.
getting that intense. That's pretty cool. So you're seeing that pop up in a number of different states, or
Yeah. And I think it could, and it's starting to happen in different career industries. In IT, you're starting to see some of these apprenticeships for coders or network people, or it's a different way of allowing people to learn. Yeah, it's the old learn while you earn
right,
model. And I think it's appealing to more and more people because of the costs of a college education today. I mean,
right?
it's beyond, you know,
It's a lot of money.
it's, yeah, it's more than my first house cost. It's like,
It's a lot of money, even in a state school. You
Yeah.
know, my like so my girls are in their late 20s, and you know, even in the last 10 years, just the cost it just seems to keep going up and up and up,
oh, I know.
and
Mhm.
I'm not quite sure you're getting the value, you know. But
Well, and
yeah,
that's the whole argument that, it sometimes takes. I know we did a study. I mean, years ago, I worked on a project trying to, it was General Motors, and they were trying to encourage young people to consider careers in the skilled trades. And um, number one, a lot of kids don't know about them. And number two,
right,
and neither do teachers or counselors,
mm-hmm,
and they don't understand them. They don't know the right courses to take. And so we did this whole program. And, we found out that if you looked at the amount of money they earned, let's say for the first 10 years of their careers, the
uh-huh,
skilled tradespeople were out earning the engineers, the college educated engineers, for, let's say, the first 10 years on the job. Then the engineers, started to become managers and earn more money. But, it's becoming, I think, a more and more appealing alternative to a lot of people. And as there are more options, if you don't have to be an engineer or an electrician or a skill, pipe
right.
fitter, if you can train for some job in IT or train for a job in the public sector, I think it's going to become more and more appealing to more people.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that, because I remember when I was in college, one of my good friends from high school, he became an electrician,
Mm.
and we talked in the day, and then I remember when I got my first offer, which was a good offer. I was a computer science guy. I was going to be a programmer. They paid pretty well. They
Mhm.
still pay pretty well, but he was already making like 20% more than my than I was
Mhm.
making. And he did very well for himself. He did very well for himself. But the thing, but back to the cost of college, that's one thing that just blows me away. Having been on the corporate side of learning and development for over 20 years, like I've just seen how the cost of training somebody or educating somebody has plummeted as you get into blended learning and all these
Uh-huh.
different techniques. And yet the cost of a college education has gone through the roof. And I just,
Uh-huh.
even I thought things were going to turn, when you saw like Phoenix University and some of those other for-profit colleges emerge, but no, it's just weird.
Uh-huh.
So, but I think the next 10 years I think we've hit a tipping point. So it'd be interesting to see the next 10 years, what happens, what
Uh-huh.
happens.
Yeah.
So Julie, what are your thoughts on the apprenticeships?
Well, I personally think they're great because I have a son who's 19 that is a sheet
Okay.
metal worker, and he has gone through the apprenticeship program and was promoted early to journeyman just because he was needed to go up in Houghton, Michigan and work in the winter, and they needed people. So they told him, we will kind of promote you to journeyman, and if you'll go up there for a while. So he's been able to do that. We always knew he wouldn't go to college. So it was like, well, what do you want to do? And a skilled trade program just seemed to make sense, that earn right away, learn on the job, go to school. It was a perfect match for him. So I'm definitely a proponent of it, and think that what we're doing with this Texas Workforce Board is pretty cool because it's all contained in the LMS. It's online, even the assessments are online, so you can test out of things, and it's just a nice packaged approach. And it's based on supervisor observation of skills, like Mary was saying. So it's not just to check the box, it's demonstrate and
Right.
observe over a period of months that you're actually building those skills that you're talking about.
So 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 help me walk through. So so a typical client right now, let's just stick on the apprenticeship programs because I think they're really interesting, and I think there's a huge gap
Mm-hmm.
in skilled labor. Like and that's one of the things I've been thinking about.
Yeah.
So if a workforce board comes and says, "Hey, we want to put these apprenticeship programs in for these types of vocations," they're not non-traditional, right? Not the electrician, not the plumber, not the millwright, but a marketing analyst or a communication specialist or somebody working within the government in some capacity.
Uh-huh.
How does the development of that program with the supervisors and the skills and how does that whole thing take shape? What does that look like, and what what are some of the big challenges of kind of piecing a program like that together?
Well, the first thing would be looking at the occupation or the job. I mean, what is it? So let's say it's a career counselor.
Okay.
And then you would really kind of do a job analysis, which is, what does that person do? What are the tasks involved in that job? And then what are the skills that it takes to do those tasks? It's all a matter of, you know, we call it competency, mapping
Hmm.
that you come up with a list of competencies that are required to do that job. And once you have the competencies, you would then create a curriculum, whether it's over 2 years. I mean, this one was over 2 years, and they took 20 competencies and divided it into 4 6-month periods. So they work on
Okay.
6 competencies or five. Yeah, five every 6 months.
Right.
And so they pulled in the managers, the leadership, and decided which, number one, they had a voice in, is this correct? And is this what we need? Then they prioritized them. Okay, if people are going to work on these, what do they need to work on the first 6 months, the next 6 months? Then you've got to have a scope and a sequence. What are the prereqs? And then once map that, you create a curriculum, which in this case they wanted to be almost all online, so that people could, get at it 24/7. And we created the assessments. They had
Hmm.
to deal with, for example, what do you do with an experienced person who's been here 20 years? Are you going to make them take this course? Well,
Right.
no, we created assessments online so they could test out. If they got
Okay.
90%, they tested out. They didn't have to take the training. If they didn't, you take the training and then they have to complete the on the job part of it, these task lists, these specific skills that are tied to that competency. They have to demonstrate under the observation of a supervisor or manager, like Julie said. So it's all the pieces put together, and then the LMS tracks all of it. So they have
Okay.
a record. They can see how their employees are doing. Are they meeting their goals? Are they on track? Who's behind? In boards that have multiple locations, they can compare how is this location doing versus this location versus this one. Who do we need to encourage? Who's falling behind? So you know, it's a very well designed system, but you start by really knowing the job, figuring out what it takes to do the job, providing the training, demonstrating it, and then recording progress. So
So I understand the training aspect of it. You mentioned that they're also working and earning a living while they're going through this. So let's take that career counselor
uh-huh,
example. So if I'm the apprentice, I've got this 2-year curriculum. It's broken into 5 skills per 6 months.
uh-huh,
The blended learning, some of it's classroom, some of it's
uh-huh.
online. I have, but what am I doing day to day to acquire? We talked earlier about skills requiring, practice and coaching. So what does my life look like, when I show up to work each day as an apprentice, like, for that career counseling? What does that look like?
Well, you would obviously go through an orientation program with
Right.
your employer. They would be teaching you the specific requirements of the job, but you would also be seeing these task lists. You would know what behaviors are going to be required of you or what the expectation is. So it's not a big surprise that if I expect you to be able to write a memo with no errors in spelling or punctuation, let's say,
Right.
if that's the expectation and you know it, then those are the things they can practice. Sometimes the employers give them a certain amount of hours per week
Hmm.
on the job that they can participate in training. They might say, okay, you can take 2 hours a week, or, they might decide to do it after work, which is how standard apprenticeships are. If you're working in a
Right.
plant, you're working in a plant 40 hours a
Right.
week. You're going to school at night. So, um, this I think is more flexible being that it's online.
Right. Right.
But they do have to perform the on the job part of it. They have to they have to work with customers and try to
So,
find them jobs.
so are they like assigned to like a career counselor as like a mentor? Are they shadowing people?
They would be assigned, yeah, they would be assigned to a supervisor or manager, somebody who's almost like a mentor, somebody who's
Okay.
experienced, who knows, and they would kind of play the role of the journeyman. If you go
Right.
back to the electrician example, the apprentice is going to work with a journeyman. And
Right.
and so that experienced person kind of becomes the journeyman.
Oh, okay. Very cool. Now, so you've been doing this for a while now. What results have you seen from these programs as they've gotten up and rolling, and and people have been going through the program? Have
Well,
they
I
achieved their goals, or what's
yeah,
the results been?
I can tell you in this one particular area. And of course, they've had COVID and all kinds of crazy things to deal with. Their turnover is very, very low.
Oh, wow.
And that's
Hmm.
unusual because in that occupation,
Yeah.
there's usually extremely high turnover. Anytime you get into customer service, turnover is a problem. And
Hmm.
that is not a problem. They also have they happen to have the highest performance rates of any of the public boards in the state that they're in.
Wow.
Their people know what they're doing. Now, can I prove that it's a result of this? Not exactly. But I think it's the commitment. The people know that the employer is interested in them, that they're willing to, um, you know, allocate time, spend money on getting them the training they need. And I think it makes a big difference in motivation, attitude, all of that.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
to
Well.
add on, just if
Yeah.
I can add on, I think part of it there is they have amazing leadership, which
Mhm.
always helps motivate employees when they know that the leaders care and are offering training. And I think they've liked it so well. We're working on a master and an executive level apprenticeship too. So giving people even more opportunities to advance and continue on if they desire to do that.
Yeah. Causality is always a hard thing to prove,
Mhm.
and so we tend to look at correlation, but that's really interesting that if you can have lower turnover, kind of like we talked about at the beginning of the episode, right? Like Julie, you've been
Mhm.
there for a long time. I was
Right.
sitting down with it. If I think a lot of executives underestimate the benefits of low turnover and how it keeps everything running really smoothly in your organization because you have that
Mhm.
deep institutional knowledge, and therefore you can take everything's not an issue. You've got people that know what they're doing at all levels, and so
Mhm.
I think if you got that, and the turnover, and then like you're saying, the other benefits, that that's pretty impressive. That's
Mhm.
like different industry, but I was at a franchising conference, and there was a study had recently been done that one of the top reasons employees leave a franchisee within 30 days is they're not trained.
Mhm.
And one of the top reasons they leave within the first year is they realize nobody else is trained either. And so, listening to different context,
So
right?
there you go. We got to move
Yeah,
apprenticeships into the franchise world.
yeah, yeah.
Move
Well,
the
it's interesting.
concept. You
Yeah,
move
well,
the concept.
yeah. It was interesting. I was talking to my sister. She sells LMSs are in the family. She sells LMSs to K-12
Mm.
schools. She's used to be a first grade teacher way back in the day. But anyway, her son is 15 and he started working at Chick-fil-A, and so we just started talking about she started talking about the training program there, and it is very much like I'm listening to what you're saying about the components of it,
Mhm.
and obviously it's a different type of skill set to work there,
Sure.
but they broke it down to 9 skills.
Mhm.
There you're a trainee, an apprentice.
Mhm.
You're wearing I forget which color, but you're wearing a certain color
Sure.
uniform,
Yep.
uh, and then once you're fully trained, you get to wear a different type color
Yep.
uniform, and it's kind it's a scaled down version of what you said. It's like there's there's formal training to learn how do I make shakes, how do I make fries, how do I make chicken, the
Mhm.
9 skills, but then you get paired with somebody that's already uh, a journeyman in that
Mhm.
skill. Somebody's already been trained, and then they certify you that you're trained in that skill. And then once you've taken all the courseware and of a particular skill, and somebody that's certified in that skill certifies you as proficient in that skill, and you fill up your card of all skills, then you get a bonus, you get to wear a different shirt and all types of things.
Right.
And it's interesting because I was listening to you describe the program, and I'm listening to this conversation with my sister about, and then I had a similar conversation with a gentleman, Tickle My Ribs, where he's doing something very similar. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's like a mini apprenticeship program.
Mhm.
There
Mhm.
he's my nephew's working, he's making a couple bucks. He gets a bump when he becomes a journeyman.
Mhm.
Um, and then the funny thing with that was he doesn't have his license yet. So So my sister made him get a job closer to home because it was like about 45 minutes away.
Mm.
And so now he's working at Dunkin' Donuts, and there's nothing like that. And he's like, and it's interesting because to see his reaction of how he was like, well, like it just felt better at Chick-fil-A because of that program.
Mm-hmm.
You've got this way of coming in. Everybody was competent
Mm-hmm.
within the organization, and he's like, and he's noticed differences in his own motivation because of that.
Mm-hmm.
It's really interesting. So
Makes
yeah,
sense.
mostly we're just saying it's like that's like a mini version of it, but it's like
Yeah.
writ large. That's fascinating, and then you're starting to see the results, like you said, and I guess like I said, causality, Bayes analysis, really difficult to prove things, but multivariate correlation, that's what you're seeing, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
well, this happens, and then all these other positive things happens. Now, and the reality is, it's a little bit of everything. It's a little bit of training. It's a little bit of people feeling like they're being guided down a path. It's a little bit of more enlightened leadership. It's a little bit, but it all adds up to have these major impacts, which is really fascinating. So
Yeah.
and now we got a few minutes left. I want to circle back to earlier in the conversation. You were talking about AI and skill development. Where do you what do you think the benefit there, or let's just talk a little bit more about that. How you've seen that it starting to emerge, or what your thoughts are on that? Because I think there's an opportunity there to start to use these avatars to do the practice and some coaching, or what do you see there in the future? How might that help with skill development?
Well, we've definitely been hearing both colleagues and customers talk about AI, and everyone
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
talks about it in terms of content development. But I think the big opportunity is in this dialogue and practicing difficult conversations because everybody at all levels are you going to face some sort of a conversation or a communication that you have to practice, and using avatars in a real world environment, I think is super helpful to provide that feedback before you go in to have that conversation. So we've been hearing that and looking at different tools and thinking about ways we would use that with like scenario based and role
Mm-hmm.
plays.
Yeah, it feels like the traditional content, the kind of the first wave of AI is more that productivity increase on the content creation.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Like help me put the traditional courses together, better,
Mhm.
faster, cheaper.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like that next wave is okay, but we can do more than just that with this technology. We can
Right.
work on skill development, which I'm very excited about, both on the soft skill and the hard skill.
Mm-hmm.
Soft skill with the avatars, hard skill with the simulations. But I think it's going to take a little bit of. I think that takes a little bit more effort to figure that out.
Yeah, I think the bigger
Yeah.
opportunity is really around this whole culture shift in terms of all this transformation and help like L&D's role in shaping that change because people are afraid, they're not confident in these tools and how to use them and this learning needs to be embedded in all workflows, and making people
Mhm.
comfortable. I think that's a huge future opportunity in developing that and strong leaders and not only that but soft skill hasn't gone away. The need for that, even though the technology is there, learning can play a big part in making people aware of these tools and how to use them and really feeling comfortable with change.
Yeah. When you said culture shift, what kind of shift are you seeing? What does that mean to you?
To me, it's just this is a huge technology transformation now. All companies
Right.
are talking about technology, and really to make it work, you need to shift the mindset. And that's what I'm talking about is
Okay.
changing that just with change in general
Right.
and how can learning impact that?
And do you see a role for learning development in terms of helping with that mind shift of adopting the technology?
Yeah.
Like how would that manifest itself? I haven't heard anybody mention that, so I'm curious about.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I just think learning our role is to help people navigate through change because over the years
Okay.
it's been like we've helped companies with a team culture or any sort of new technology. That's all change. So thinking
Okay.
about learning's role to me, L&D's role in helping
Mm.
people be comfortable with that and practice it and weave learning into everyday work in terms of AI, and how does that make our lives different?
And I think part of what you do is apply, what we know about adult learning, for example. We know what adults like and, what they want to learn. They want to learn things that are going to help them at work or at home. They don't necessarily want to learn things just to learn things. And so making them aware, I mean, when we create training, one of the things I always remember is, the first thing you have to do is get the learner's attention. If you don't get the learner's attention, you can have all the training in the world, but it isn't gonna make any difference. And one of the best ways to do that is to explain what I call the WIFMs, the WIFM, which is what's in it for me. At the beginning, when you're talking about, here are the objectives or here's where we're going to go, they need to understand why. Why do I care? What's in it for me? What's it going to do for me? And now you have my attention. And that's the role I think L&D can really play in this transformation, is to help people. you know I mean, generally people don't like change. We're all like that. We get
Right.
comfortable. We don't want, if it's not broke, don't fix it. So, we have to get their attention. And I think that's the role L&D can play in this whole
Yeah.
transformation.
Yeah, how
Yeah,
does it apply to my
it-
job and make it fun, make it interesting, and engage me in the
yeah,
process? I think that's what Mary's saying with adult learning. That hasn't changed. The technology
right.
has, but how we learn and interact really hasn't changed.
Yeah, it's interesting. I talked to folks and I said, it's like the third technological wave I've experienced in my
Mhm.
career, and there's been a lot before that, right? I mean, there was steam engine and electricity, and just and it, I believe it changes everything, but we don't really know what. But the thing that gives me solace is there's no such thing as a perpetual motion machine, and so you need people to think and do things,
Mhm.
and it can be a great set of tools, but it'll be interesting to see. I never thought of I mean, I guess it makes complete sense, but I never thought of learning and development more from a perspective of change management. Like I always know it's part of that, but like just sitting there going, okay, well, all learning is change because I didn't know something and now I know something. I didn't know how to do something. Now I how to do something. And it's like doubling down on that element of learning and development to
Mhm.
help navigate through a major technological change. That's really interesting. It's really
Well, and
interesting.
I mean, obviously you can help people learn how to use the tools. I mean, that's
Right.
part of
Right.
it too. But I think you start with helping them understand the why. You know,
Yeah.
why should I get? You got to get their attention.
Well, yeah. Well, and attention's an important thing because look, there's an infinite number of things we could be focusing our attention on, right? But we
That's
got to,
right.
and so why this thing? It doesn't, it's not being rude. It's like there's competition, right?
Hmm.
Like,
Right.
I can be focusing on sports scores. I can be focusing on my family. I can be focusing on a million and one things. Why this? And I have
Hmm.
to understand that. So very cool. So I think we did a pretty good. I think we got a really good understanding of, say, doing the apprenticeship program, bring AI in the future. Is there anything else related to learning designs and where you're going into the future that you want to share with everybody?
Can't think of anything else specific
No,
right.
I mean we're looking at a lot of these tools and new tools, and what do we have to do to upskill?
Okay.
I mean,
All right. Good. Just cut that out. Don't worry about it. So shifting gears from learning designs, we're all learning professionals. We love to learn new things outside of work. What do you guys like to learn about and explore?
Julie likes to explore how to destroy her body. That's why I keep telling her she isn't going to be able to walk in 20 years. I have not convinced her yet. So
Well, my answer to that is I can be in a rocking chair in 20 years because I'm old, or I can be in it because I've done everything I've wanted to do in life, and so
Yeah.
Well, you have to expand upon the destroying
yeah,
your body part.
Well, I mean,
yeah.
she does these grueling races, marathons, and which is amazing. I mean, and I know how hard she trains for it, but
So, Julie, what's been your favorite marathon that you've run?
Well, I just got back 2 weeks ago from Leadville, Colorado. I did a mountain
Uh-huh.
run up to 13,000 feet. So
Oh
that's
my.
probably my biggest challenge so far. But I'm looking at more. I'm
Oh,
always Googling new things.
holy smokes. 13th.
see
And
what I mean?
yeah, yeah. Well, oxygen's a good thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Did
survived.
that, did you spend time acclimating at altitude, or did you?
Yeah, I mean, you can't train in Michigan, of course, for that. So we went 5
Hey,
days
hey,
ahead of
we
time.
got peaks that are a good 1,000 feet above sea level.
I don't even know if we have that, Jeff, honestly. Yeah, so
Uh
we just went a few days out and did our best, had a few
huh.
headaches because that's common and it's really dry. We noticed a
Uh
lot of
huh.
sinus problems, but after 3 or 4 days and lots of fluids, that it worked for us.
And how long was the run? I mean, you were at altitude, but how
15 and a half,
how? Oh my.
15 and a half miles.
Oh my. So more than a half marathon. Wow.
Yeah,
Wow. You do like to push your body to the limit. That's amazing. That's
that's
amazing.
what I call fun. I know it's weird.
Well, like I said, I'm doing my first half Ironman this weekend with my daughters. So I have not historically been an endurance person,
Awesome.
sports wise, or so. Yes, it's going to be it's just half marathon.
Is it in Sandusky, Jeff? Is it in Sandusky, Ohio, by chance?
No, we're going out to Oregon. It's in
Okay,
Salem, Oregon, and
cool. Wow,
yeah, my girls are marathoners. They were distance runners in high school, and they both run multiple marathons. And so this
awesome.
year they were like, hey, they didn't get into any of the marathons they wanted to run.
Mm,
So they were like, hey, let's do a triathlon. And then I was like, hey, let's do a half Ironman. And then it was like,
that's
hey,
hard.
Dad, we're doing this half Ironman. Yeah. So this is my first. So, hopefully I'll be back next week. And
You will, you will.
We'll check in to see.
Yeah.
so is there anything else you want to cover? It was, thank you so much for your time and energy and sharing all that. It was very
It
educational.
was fun.
I always learn. It was a lot of fun. And congratulations on running the mountains of Colorado.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you, Jeff.
And good
The
luck to you.
Yeah, well,
Yes.
the
Good luck.
half Ironman is not at altitude, and the swim portion is in a river going downriver. So
I
I
love
got that going for me.
I love it. I can't wait to see pictures.
Yeah.
All right, I'll get you someone. Hopefully there's no ambulances involved.
No,
Yeah.
you'll be fine. Thank you so much for including us.
It's a pleasure, and thank you for all your support over the years. You guys have been awesome. I really enjoyed you as clients, and just thank you. I just really appreciate it. And thank you
Thank you.
for sharing with everybody out there listening what y'all do, and how you're making a difference, and how they can take some of those lessons and be more effective at what they do. So, because
Sure.
we're all big believers in knowledge and education and skill development, and that changes the world. And so I really appreciate you sharing all that with everybody. So thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
And to everybody else out there, thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.